The smell of grease and charred meat clung to my skin like a second layer, one I could never quite scrub off no matter how hard I tried. It seeped into my hair, my clothes, the creases of my palms. At 3 a.m, standing in my cramped bathroom with its cracked mirror and flickering bulb, I'd catch my own reflection and barely recognize the woman staring back. Dark circles carved shadows beneath my eyes. My hands, once soft, now bore burns and calluses that told the story of every day I'd spent hunched over my food cart. The city never slept, but it had its rhythms. Mine began at 4:30 each morning, when the alarm clock's shrill cry dragged me from restless dreams. I'd dress in the dark, jeans worn thin at the knees, a faded t-shirt, the canvas shoes with holes I kept meaning to replace, and make my way through streets still drunk on darkness. The walk to my cart took 20 minutes, past shuttered storefronts tagged with graffiti, over sidewalks cracked and uneven, through alleys where shadows moved with purposes I never wanted to understand. My cart waited where I'd chained it the night before, beside the construction site on 5th and Morrison. It wasn't much. A converted hot dog stand I'd bought third-hand with money I'd saved from my previous life, back when I still believed in things like stability and tomorrow. The metal was dented, the paint peeling, but it was mine, the only thing in this entire city that belonged to me. By 6, I had the grill heated, the prep work done. Steam rose from the surface as I laid out the first batch of breakfast sandwiches, eggs, cheese, a thin slice of ham when I could afford it. The morning crowd trickled in slowly. Construction workers with cement dust in their hair, office cleaners finishing their shifts. People who, like me, existed in the margins, invisible to everyone who mattered. I kept my head down, made change, offered tired smiles that never quite reached my eyes. The routine was numbing, which was exactly what I needed. Numb meant I didn't think about the apartment I'd lost 6 months ago. Numb meant I didn't calculate how many meals I skipped, so my meager profits could cover the storage unit fee where I kept the few possessions I hadn't sold. Numb meant I could pretend this was temporary, that I was still the person I used to be. That's when I first saw him. The boy couldn't have been more than 8, maybe 9, too thin, with hollowed cheeks and eyes that held a wariness no child should possess. His clothes hung off his frame, a jacket 3 sizes too large, sneakers held together with duct tape. He appeared like a ghost at the edge of my cart's awning, hovering in that space between wanting and afraid to ask. I knew that look. I'd worn it myself not so long ago. "Hey," I called softly, not wanting to startle him. "You hungry?" His eyes widened, darted left and right as if checking for traps. When he didn't answer, I wrapped up one of the breakfast sandwiches. Still warm, the cheese melted just right, and held it out. "It's okay," I said. "Consider it a gift." His hand shot out so fast I barely saw the movement. He snatched the sandwich and retreated 3 steps, unwrapping it with shaking fingers. The first bite he took was enormous, desperate. I had to look away, my throat tight with recognition. He came back the next day, and the day after that. We never spoke much. I'd make him a sandwich, sometimes 2 if the morning had been profitable, and he'd eat standing at the edge of my space, always ready to run. I learned his name was Tommy, that he lived around, that his favorite was when I managed to add bacon, the strips crispy and fragrant. "You don't have to keep feeding me," he said one morning, 3 weeks into our routine. His voice was small, uncertain. "I know," I replied, flipping eggs with practiced efficiency. "But I want to. Because feeding him fed something in me, too. Some small piece of humanity I thought I'd lost when my world fell apart. When my ex-boyfriend drained our joint account and disappeared. When the eviction notice appeared on my door. When I realized no one was coming to save me, that I'd been a fool to ever think otherwise. The morning stretched into afternoon. The lunch crowd was always more demanding, people in suits who looked through me like I was part of the scenery, teenagers who counted their change twice, delivery drivers who ate standing up because time was money and they had none to waste. My feet ached. My back screamed. The smell of grease had long since stopped registering as anything but normal. Tommy showed up again around 2, later than usual. His eyes were red-rimmed, and there was a fresh bruise blooming purple along his jaw. "What happened?" asked, my hand stilling on the grill. Nothing. He wouldn't meet my gaze. Can I have a sandwich? I made him two. Added extra cheese, wrapped them carefully. When I handed them over, our fingers touched briefly. His were ice cold despite the summer heat. Tommy, if someone's hurting you... I'm fine. The words came out sharp, defensive. Thanks for the food. He vanished into the afternoon crowd before I could say anything else. The day wore on. The sun climbed higher, turning my cart into an oven, the awning providing minimal relief. Sweat dripped down my spine, plastered my shirt to my skin. I served customers on autopilot, my mind elsewhere, worrying about a kid who wasn't mine to worry about, who I had no right to protect beyond offering a sandwich and a smile. Evening descended slowly, painting the sky in shades of amber and violet. The construction site emptied out, workers heading home to families and cold beers and lives that didn't revolve around survival. I began my closing routine, scraping down the grill, covering the condiments, counting the day's earnings with fingers that trembled from exhaustion. $234. After the cart rental, propane, supplies, and the fee for my parking spot, I'd clear maybe $40. Enough to buy groceries for the week if I was careful. Enough to slowly, painfully claw my way back to something resembling stability. I was loading supplies into the storage compartment when I felt it, that prickle of awareness that said I wasn't alone. The street had emptied out, the usual evening crowd thinned to nothing. The construction site stood silent, its skeletal framework casting long shadows across the pavement. A car idled at the corner. Not just any car. A black Mercedes with windows tinted so dark they looked like pools of ink. I'd seen plenty of expensive cars in this neighborhood, usually passing through on their way to somewhere better. But this one wasn't moving. It sat there, engine purring, and something about it made my skin crawl with instinctive dread. The back door opened. He emerged like smoke given form, all lean lines and controlled grace. Even from a distance, I could see he wasn't like the people who usually inhabited my world. His suit was dark, perfectly tailored, the kind that probably cost more than I made in 6 months. But it wasn't the clothes that made my breath catch. It was the way he moved, deliberate, unhurried, like someone who'd never been told no, who'd never had to rush because the world operated on his schedule, not the other way around. 2 men flanked him immediately, materializing from the car with the synchronization of a well-rehearsed dance, security. Their eyes swept the street in constant motion, hands resting near their jackets in a way that suggested weapons within easy reach. My heart began to hammer against my ribs. They crossed the street toward me, and I became acutely aware of how alone I was, how vulnerable. The nearest open business was 3 blocks away. My phone sat in my pocket, but who would I call? What would I say? As they drew closer, details emerged with painful clarity. The man in the center, because that's what he was, the center, the sun around which the others orbited, couldn't have been much older than 30. Dark hair styled with casual precision, features that belonged on magazine covers, all sharp angles and aristocratic lines. But it was his eyes that froze me in place. Dark, intense, calculating. Eyes that saw everything and revealed nothing. He stopped 3 feet from my cart. Close enough that I could smell his cologne, something expensive and woody that made my cheap surroundings feel even shabbier by comparison. His gaze swept over me in a single assessing glance that felt like being stripped bare. "You're the one who feeds the boy," he said. Not a question. A statement. His voice was low, smooth, with an accent I couldn't quite place. It wrapped around me like silk hiding razor wire. I tried to speak, but my throat had closed up, my mouth suddenly dry as desert sand. "Every day," he continued, taking another step forward. One of his guards moved with him, a shadow that never left his side. For almost a month now, Tommy. The way he said the boy's name made my stomach drop. There was possession in it, ownership. I started, then stopped, my mind racing. Was Tommy his son? His nephew? Had I done something wrong by feeding him? He was hungry, you fed him. His eyes hadn't left my face, studying me with an intensity that made me want to shrink back, to disappear. asked for nothing in return, expected nothing. There was something in his tone I couldn't read. Not quite approval, not quite suspicion. Something else entirely. He's a kid, I managed, finding my voice despite the fear crawling up my spine. Just a hungry kid. One corner of his mouth lifted, not quite a smile. More like the ghost of one. It didn't reach his eyes, which remained as dark and fathomless as deep water. Most people walk past hungry children every day without seeing them. He tilted his head slightly, still watching me like I was a puzzle he was trying to solve. You're not like most people. I didn't know how to respond to that. Wasn't sure if it was a compliment or an accusation, or something more dangerous than either. The silence stretched between us, thick with tension I didn't understand. Tommy is... He paused, choosing his words carefully. Under my protection. Has been since his father made certain... mistakes. The way he said mistakes sent ice through my veins. This wasn't a concerned relative. This was something else. Someone else. The expensive suit, the security detail, the way he spoke in measured sentences that revealed nothing, it all clicked into place with sickening clarity. I didn't know, I whispered. I didn't mean to. You didn't mean to show kindness to a child? His head tilted again, bird-like, predatory. An interesting thing to apologize for. He moved closer, and I instinctively stepped back, my hip colliding with the edge of my cart. His guards tensed, but didn't advance. He raised one hand in a subtle gesture, and they relaxed fractionally, though their eyes never stopped scanning our surroundings. What's your name? He asked softly. Everything in me screamed not to answer. To lie. To give him anything but the truth, but those eyes held me pinned like a butterfly to cork, and I heard myself respond before I could stop the words. Ella. Ella Morrison. Ella. He repeated it slowly, like tasting wine. You've shown kindness to someone I care about. That creates an obligation. The way he said obligation made it sound like a chain rather than gratitude. I don't want anything, I said quickly. Really. I know what you were doing. He reached into his jacket, my heart stopped entirely, and pulled out a wallet of soft black leather. His fingers moved with practiced efficiency, extracting bills I couldn't see clearly in the dimming light. But I pay my debts. He set the money on my cart's counter. Even folded, I could see the denominations. Hundreds. Multiple hundreds. I can't accept... I started. You can. You will. Not a suggestion. A command delivered in that same soft, dangerous voice. Because tomorrow, and every day after, when Tommy comes to you hungry, you'll feed him. You'll make sure he's safe. You'll tell me if anyone troubles him. He produced a card from somewhere, placing it beside the money. Matte black with a single phone number embossed in silver. Nothing else. No name, no title, no business. Call that number if there's any problem. Any problem at all. His eyes held mine, and I saw something flicker in their depths. Something that looked almost like approval mixed with something else I couldn't name. Tommy speaks highly of you. He says you're kind, that you never ask questions, that you make him feel visible. My throat tightened. He's a good kid. He's a liability, he corrected. But there was no malice in it, just statement of fact. His father stole from me, tried to run, left his son behind like garbage. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. I don't tolerate traitors, but I don't punish children for their parents' sins. Tommy lives. Tommy eats. Tommy gets a chance his father tried to steal from him. The words hung in the air between us, heavy with implication. I didn't ask what happened to Tommy's father. Didn't want to know. Some questions were safer, left unasked. I'll take care of him, I heard myself say. You didn't need to pay me for that. Everyone needs to be paid. He picked up the money he'd left and, before I could process what was happening, reached out and tucked it into my shirt pocket. His fingers brushed my collarbone, the touch lasting a heartbeat too long. His skin was warm against mine, and I felt that warmth spread through me like wildfire. But you're right. This isn't payment. He stepped back, and I could breathe again. Consider it an investment, he said. In something rare. What's that? The question slipped out before I could stop it. Genuine kindness. His gaze swept over me one final time, lingering on details I suddenly wished I could hide. The threadbare state of my clothes, the exhaustion carved into my features, the desperation I wore like a second skin. A commodity more valuable than you realize. He turned to leave, his guards moving with him in perfect synchronization. 3 steps away, he paused and looked back over his shoulder. The streetlight had flickered on, casting his face in harsh relief, all shadows and sharp edges. "My name is Dante," he said. "Dante Moretti, and Ella Morrison." His eyes found mine across the distance. "I'll be watching." Then he was gone, sliding back into that expensive car with its tinted windows. The engine purred to life, and the Mercedes glided away like a shark through dark water. I stood frozen beside my cart, my hand pressed to my pocket where I could feel the money's weight, foreign and dangerous. The card sat on my counter, gleaming dully in the fading light. I picked it up with shaking fingers, stared at that single silver number. Dante Moretti. I didn't need to Google the name to know what I'd find. The newspapers were full of whispers, of speculation, of crimes that could never be proven. The Moretti family controlled half the city's underworld: drugs, protection, gambling, things darker still. And I'd just promised to take care of the son of a man who'd betrayed them. The last customer of the evening, a tired woman in a grocery store uniform, approached my cart, and I served her on autopilot, made change, offered a smile that felt like it belonged to someone else. When she left, I finished my closing routine with hands that wouldn't quite steady. The money in my pocket felt like it was burning through the fabric. $500, more than I made in a week, maybe 2 weeks. Money that could solve so many problems, fill so many gaps. Money that came with a price I didn't yet understand. I pushed my cart toward the storage facility, my mind replaying every second of the encounter. The way Dante moved, the way he looked at me, the casual authority in every word, every gesture, the warmth of his fingers against my skin. Tommy appeared at my elbow without warning, making me jump. "Did he come?" the boy asked, his voice tight with something that might have been fear or hope or both. "Yes," I said softly. "What did he want?" I looked down at him. This child caught in a world he hadn't chosen. Just like me. To make sure you're being taken care of. Tommy's expression was unreadable. Old. Too old. He always makes sure. That's what he does. He protects what's his. The way he said it sent a shiver down my spine. "Am I in danger?" I asked before I could stop myself. Tommy's eyes met mine, and I saw something there that made my blood run cold. "We're all in danger, Ella. That's just the world we live in, but..." He paused, considering. "He won't hurt you. Not unless you betray him. And maybe not even then. Because what? Because he looked at you the way he looks at things he wants to keep." Sleep didn't come that night. I lay on the narrow cot in the corner of my storage unit, a space barely large enough to qualify as a room, smelling of cardboard and dust, and stared at the ceiling until my eyes burned. Every time I closed them, I saw Dante Moretti's face, those dark eyes studying me like I was something he was deciding whether to acquire or destroy. Tommy's words echoed in the darkness. He looked at you the way he looks at things he wants to keep. What did that mean? What could someone like him possibly want with someone like me? I was nobody. Nothing. A woman who sold breakfast sandwiches from a cart, who slept in a storage unit because she couldn't afford rent, whose entire net worth could fit in 2 boxes and a duffel bag. The money sat on the plastic crate I used as a nightstand, those crisp $100 bills arranged in a neat stack. I'd counted them 3 times. $500 exactly, enough to change everything for a few weeks, enough to be dangerous if it came with strings attached. And everything came with strings attached. Dawn broke gray and reluctant, clouds hanging low over the city like a lid on a pot. I went through my morning routine in a daze, washing my face in the communal bathroom, brushing my teeth, pulling my hair into the same ponytail I wore every day. The mirror showed me a woman who looked haunted, shadows beneath her eyes deeper than yesterday. The card, matte black with that silver number, went into my pocket. I told myself I was just keeping it safe, that I'd probably never use it, but my fingers found it throughout the morning, tracing its edges like a talisman. My cart was where I'd left it, chained to the bike rack near the construction site. The morning came alive slowly. The distant rumble of traffic, the sharp calls of gulls circling overhead, the metallic clang of workers arriving at the site. I heated the grill, prepped the ingredients, fell into the rhythm that kept me sane. But everything felt different now. The street looked the same, but I saw it through new eyes. That black sedan parked across the street. Was someone watching me? The man in the gray jacket who passed by twice. Was he one of Dante's people? I'd never noticed how many shadows existed in broad daylight, how many places someone could hide while appearing perfectly ordinary. Paranoia, I told myself. Just paranoia. Tommy arrived at his usual time, materializing from the morning crowd like he always did. But today I saw the fear beneath his careful composure, the way his eyes swept the street before approaching, the tension in his thin shoulders. "Morning," I said, trying to sound normal. "The usual?" He nodded, then hesitated. "He told you, didn't he? About my dad?" I cracked eggs onto the grill, focused on the simple task to avoid looking at him. "He told me your father made mistakes. That you're under his protection now." Protection. Tommy laughed, a bitter sound that didn't belong in a child's throat. "That's one word for it. What would you call it?" He was quiet for a long moment, watching me work. "Insurance. My dad stole from the Morettis, a lot. He thought he was smart enough to get away with it. He wasn't." His voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "Dante could have killed me. Should have, probably. That's what usually happens. But he didn't." "Why not?" "I don't know." Tommy's eyes found mine, and I saw genuine confusion there. "He showed up at our apartment the night after my dad ran. I thought that was it, you know, that I was done. But he just looked at me for a long time, then said I wasn't responsible for my father's choices. That I'd live if I followed his rules." "What rules?" "Don't run. Don't talk to cops. Don't trust anyone." He accepted the sandwich I wrapped for him, his fingers careful not to touch mine this time, and let him know if anyone threatens me or asks questions about him. The implications settled over me like a cold blanket. "So you're... what? A prisoner?" "No." He shook his head. "More like property, but he's not cruel about it. He makes sure I have a place to sleep, food to eat. Could be worse. Has been worse before." I wanted to argue, to tell him that no child should live like that, viewing basic care as luxury, but who was I to judge? I slept in a storage unit, skipped meals to save money, existed in the margins just like he did. "He asked about you," Tommy said suddenly. "Last night, when I got home. Wanted to know everything. How long you'd been feeding me, what we talked about, if you ever asked questions or seemed interested in anything besides making sure I ate." My heart kicked against my ribs. "What did you tell him?" "The truth. That you're kind. That you never pry. That you look tired all the time but still smile when I show up." He paused. "That you're the only person in this whole city who sees me as a person instead of a liability or a tool." "Tommy?" He liked that answer. The boy's expression turned serious, older than his years. "Be careful, Ella. When Dante Moretti likes something, he doesn't let it go easily." He left before I could respond, vanishing into the crowd with his sandwich clutched in both hands. I stood there, spatula in hand, trying to process what he'd said, trying to understand what I'd walked into by showing basic human kindness to a hungry child. The morning crowd thickened. I served customers mechanically, my mind elsewhere. A construction worker asked twice about his order before I registered the question. A woman in business attire had to repeat herself 3 times. I was distracted, jumpy, seeing threats in every shadow. Around noon, a man approached my cart who didn't belong. He was too clean, too polished, his suit too expensive for someone who'd eat street food. Mid-40s, with salt and pepper hair and cold eyes that assessed me like I was livestock. "Ella Morrison?" he asked. Every instinct screamed danger. "Who's asking?" "Someone interested in your welfare." He smiled, but it never touched his eyes. "I hear you've made some interesting friends recently. The Moretti family takes an interest in very few people. I'm curious why you're one of them." I don't know what you're talking about. No? His smile widened. Then perhaps you can explain why Dante Moretti himself visited your cart last night, why he gave you money, why he's suddenly very protective of a nobody food vendor who should be invisible to men like him. The threat was implicit, but unmistakable. My hand moved to my pocket, fingers closing around that black card. I think you should leave. I think you should be smart. He leaned closer, his voice dropping. The Morettis have enemies, lots of them. Being under their protection can be just as dangerous as being their target. Maybe more so. You're a liability now, whether you realize it or not, and liabilities have a tendency to... Is there a problem here? The voice came from behind me, smooth and deadly as a knife blade. I didn't need to turn around to know who it was. My body recognized him before my mind caught up. That shift in the air, the sudden weight of presence that made everything else feel less significant. Dante Moretti stood 3 feet away, and I hadn't heard him approach. His guards flanked him, their eyes locked on the man across from me with predatory focus. Dante himself looked relaxed, almost casual, but there was something coiled about him. A snake about to strike. Mr. Moretti, the man said, and all the confidence drained from his voice. I was just what? Dante moved forward, placing himself between me and the stranger. His back was to me now, but I could see the tension in his shoulders, the deliberate control in every movement. Just threatening someone under my protection? Just making the catastrophically stupid decision to approach what's mine without permission? I didn't know she was... Yes, you did. Dante's voice remained soft, conversational even. Somehow that made it more terrifying. You knew exactly what you were doing. The question is whether you did it on your own initiative, or if someone sent you. The man's face had gone pale. Nobody sent me. I just thought... You thought you could gather information, test the waters, see if she was worth the risk. Dante tilted his head slightly. Let me save you the trouble of finding out. She is not worth the risk. Nothing is worth the risk of crossing me. Are we clear? Yes, absolutely. I apologize. I didn't mean... Leave. One word, absolute in its finality. And spread the word to whoever is foolish enough to be paying attention. Ella Morrison is off limits. Her cart is off limits. Anyone who approaches her without my explicit permission will answer to me personally. Understood? The man nodded frantically and retreated, nearly stumbling in his haste to escape. He disappeared into the crowd, and the tension that had gripped the street slowly released. Dante's guards remained alert, but their postures eased fractionally. Dante turned to face me, and I saw something in his expression I hadn't seen before. Anger, yes, but beneath it something that looked almost like concern. Are you all right? He asked. I nodded, not trusting my voice. My hands were shaking, adrenaline making my fingers tremble against the grill's edge. What did he say to you? That I'm a liability. The words came out barely above a whisper. That being under your protection makes me a target. He's not wrong. Dante stepped closer, his eyes searching my face, but being without my protection would make you a target too, now that people know I've shown interest. There's no safe option anymore, Ella. Only safer. I didn't ask for this. No. Something flickered across his expression. Regret, maybe, or something close to it. You just fed a hungry child and showed kindness where none was expected. And now you're caught in a world you never wanted to be part of. So what happens now? He was quiet for a long moment, studying me with that intensity that made me feel transparent. When he spoke, his voice was careful, measured. Now you continue your life as normally as possible. You run your cart. You feed Tommy. You call me if anyone approaches you or makes you feel unsafe, and you accept that you're under my protection whether you want to be or not. Why? The question burst out before I could stop it. Why do you care? I'm nobody. Nothing. Why waste your resources protecting me? His eyes held mine, and I saw something shift in their depths. Something I couldn't name but felt in my bones. You showed kindness to a child I'm responsible for. That matters. And he paused, seemed to be choosing his words carefully. You remind me that not everyone in this city is motivated by greed or fear. That's rare. Worth protecting. That's it? That's the only reason? Does there need to be another? He reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away, and tucked a strand of hair that had escaped my ponytail behind my ear. His fingers lingered against my cheek, warm and surprisingly gentle. You're under my protection now. That means you're mine to keep safe. Accept it, Ella. Fighting it will only make things harder for both of us. The possessiveness in those words should have terrified me. Instead, I felt something else entirely, a warmth spreading through my chest, dangerous and unwelcome. This man was a criminal, a killer probably, everything I should run from, so why did part of me want to lean into that touch instead of pulling away? He must have seen something in my expression because his eyes darkened. I need to know you're safe. That means changes. Starting today. What kind of changes? One of my men will be nearby whenever you're working. You won't see him most of the time, but he'll be there, watching, making sure nobody bothers you again. He pulled his hand back, and I felt the loss of warmth like a physical thing. I'm also moving you to a better location. The spot on 5th and Morrison is too exposed, too difficult to secure. I can't afford a better location, I said quickly. The fees are no longer your concern. He reached into his jacket, I didn't flinch this time, and produced another card. This one had an address printed in clean black letters. Report here tomorrow at 6 a.m. The spot is already paid for. Better foot traffic, better security. Your profits will increase. I can't accept. Yes, you can. You will. The same command from yesterday, delivered in that same soft, implacable tone. This isn't charity, Ella. This is me protecting my investment. You're valuable to me now. That means I ensure you're in a position to remain valuable. The words should have made me feel like property, like something he owned, but the way he looked at me when he said it, like I was something precious, something worth guarding, made my stomach flip in ways I didn't want to examine. What if I refuse? I asked, needing to know if I had any choice in this. Then you'd be foolish. His expression softened slightly. But I don't think you're foolish. Stubborn, perhaps. Proud. But not foolish. You know the situation you're in now. You know refusing my help doesn't make you independent. It just makes you vulnerable. He was right. And I hated that he was right. Hated that I'd somehow stumbled into a trap without even knowing I was stepping into it. A trap, baited with money and protection, and the dark promise in his eyes when he looked at me. Say yes, Ella, he said softly. Let me keep you safe. The words hung between us, heavy with meaning I was only beginning to understand. This wasn't just about Tommy anymore. Maybe it never had been. This was about something else entirely. Something that terrified me more than any threat from his enemies ever could. Okay, I whispered. Yes, the smile that crossed his face was genuine this time, reaching his eyes and transforming his features from dangerous to devastating. Good girl. He left then, his guards falling into formation around him as they moved toward that black Mercedes waiting at the curb. I watched him go, my heart hammering, my skin still tingling where he'd touched me. What had I just agreed to? The new location was in the heart of the financial district, nestled between a bank and a boutique coffee shop that charged $8 for a latte. When I arrived at 6 the next morning, pushing my cart through streets still slick with overnight rain, I almost turned around 3 times. This wasn't my world. The buildings here gleamed with glass and steel, their surfaces reflecting the pre-dawn sky in shades of gray and pink. Men in $1,000 suits would pass by, women in designer heels clicking against pristine sidewalks. They wouldn't stop at a food cart run by someone like me. They wouldn't even see me. But the spot Dante had secured was prime real estate. A corner position with heavy foot traffic, protected by an awning that actually looked structurally sound. A small metal plate attached to the ground marked it as reserved. And when I read the name engraved there, my stomach dropped. Moretti Enterprises. He'd put his name on it, claimed this space, and by extension, claimed me. I sat up slowly, my hands moving through familiar motions while my mind raced. A man in a gray suit stood across the street, reading a newspaper. He'd been there when I arrived, And something about his stillness, the way his eyes tracked my movements over the paper's edge, told me he was one of Dante's people. My shadow. My guard. The knowledge should have comforted me. Instead, it felt like a collar tightening around my throat. The morning crowd started earlier here. First came the joggers, lean and focused, designer athletic wear clinging to gym-sculpted bodies. Then the early shift workers, administrative assistants, junior analysts, people climbing ladders I'd never even see the bottom rung of. They eyed my cart with curiosity, some with disdain. But enough stopped to make the morning profitable in ways I'd never experienced. By 8 a.m., I'd served more customers than I usually did by noon. The money piled up in my cash box. 5s, 10s, the occasional 20 from someone too important to wait for change. My hands ached from the constant motion, but it was a good ache. A productive ache. Tommy found me around 9, weaving through the crowd with the ease of long practice. He stopped dead when he saw the new location, his eyes going wide. "He moved you," he said, and there was something in his voice I couldn't identify. "To his territory." His territory? The financial district. The Morettis own half the buildings here, have protection contracts with the other half. Tommy accepted the sandwich I offered, but his expression remained troubled. "This isn't just a better spot, Ella. This is a statement. He's telling everyone in the city that you're his." The word, his, sent heat through me that I tried desperately to ignore. "I'm not anyone's. That's not how it works." Tommy's old eyes met mine. "Not in this world. You're under his protection, on his property, taking money from people who do business with him. That makes you his, whether you agreed to it or not." I didn't agree to anything except accepting his help. Same thing. He bit into the sandwich, chewed thoughtfully. "Be careful, Ella. I've seen how he looks at you. It's different from how he looks at other people. More intense. Like you're something he's afraid will disappear if he looks away." Before I could respond, a woman approached the cart. Mid-30s, beautiful in the way that came from expensive maintenance rather than genetics. Her suit was designer, her jewelry understated but clearly costly. She looked at me the way someone might look at an interesting insect, curious, but distant. "So, you're the one," she said, her voice carrying the crisp consonants of private school education, the food vendor Dante's suddenly so protective of. I stiffened, remembering the man from yesterday, but this felt different. Less threat, more assessment. "I'm just running my cart," I said carefully. Her eyes traveled over me, cataloging every detail. My worn clothes, my tired face, the grease stains I could never quite wash from my fingernails. "I'm curious what he sees in you. You're not his usual type." "I don't know what you mean. Don't play stupid. It doesn't suit you." She leaned against the cart, too close, invading my space with practiced ease. "Dante Moretti doesn't protect people out of altruism. He doesn't move them to prime locations and assign personal security for charity. So what are you to him? What service are you providing that makes you worth all this effort?" The implication was clear, and it made my face burn. "I feed a child who's under his protection. That's all." "That's all?" She laughed, the sound sharp and knowing. "Darling, men like Dante don't reorganize their territories for someone who's just feeding a child. They barely reorganize for their own families. So either you're incredibly naive, or you're lying to yourself about what this is." "Who are you?" I asked, my voice sharper than intended. "Someone who's known Dante a lot longer than you have. Someone who's seen him destroy people for far less than what you're doing." Her smile was all edges. "Consider this friendly advice. Whatever game you think you're playing, you're out of your league. The Moretti family doesn't do simple. They don't do innocent. Everything comes with a price, and eventually, Dante will expect you to pay it." She walked away before I could respond, her heels clicking a staccato rhythm against the sidewalk. I stood frozen, my hands gripping the cart's edge hard enough to hurt. Tommy had gone pale. "That was Isabella Russo. Her family does business with the Morettis. If she's noticing you, it means everyone's noticing you." "Great," I muttered. Just what I needed. The rest of the morning passed in a blur. More customers, more money, more curious glances from people who seemed to know something I didn't. The man across the street never moved, his presence a constant reminder that I was being watched, protected, controlled. Lunch service was chaos. The financial district came alive at noon, sidewalks flooding with people desperate to grab food before their next meeting. I worked nonstop for 2 hours, barely keeping up with demand. My shirt stuck to my back with sweat. My feet screamed in protest, but the money kept piling up. $300 by 2 p.m., more than I usually made in 2 days. When the crowd finally thinned, I allowed myself a moment to breathe. Leaned against the cart, rolled my shoulders, tried to process everything that had happened in the last 48 hours. That's when the Mercedes pulled up. It was a different car this time. Still black, still expensive, but sleeker somehow. The back door opened, and Dante emerged with that same controlled grace that made my breath catch. Today he wore charcoal gray, the suit fitting him like it had been painted on. His eyes found me immediately, and something in his expression softened. "How's the new location?" he asked, approaching with his ever-present guards shadowing his steps. "Busy," I managed, "very busy." "Good." He gestured to the cash box I hadn't bothered to hide. "Your profits?" I nodded, suddenly self-conscious about the crumpled bills and scattered change. "Count it," he said. "I don't need to." "Count it, Ella." Not a request. My hands shook slightly as I sorted the bills, stacking them by denomination. When I finished, the total made my throat tight. $347. More than I'd made in my best week at the old location. Dante watched me count, his expression unreadable. When I finished, he pulled out his wallet and added 5 crisp hundreds to the pile. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Making sure you understand your value." He pushed the money toward me. "This is what you should be making every day. This is what you're worth in the right location, with the right protection. Remember that. I can't keep taking your money. You're not taking it. You're earning it. There's a difference." His eyes held mine, intense and unwavering. "I protect what's mine, Ella. Part of that protection means ensuring you can survive, even thrive. Otherwise, what's the point?" There was that word again. Mine. It should have made me angry, should have made me rebel against the possessiveness inherent in it. Instead, it made something low in my stomach tighten with heat I didn't want to acknowledge. "Why are you doing this?" I asked, the question that had been burning in my chest since yesterday finally escaping. "Really? Not the reasons you've given me, but the real reason. Why do you care what happens to me?" He was quiet for a long moment, studying me with an intensity that made me want to look away. When he spoke, his voice was lower, rougher. "Because when I look at you, I see something I thought didn't exist anymore in this city. Someone who gives without expecting anything in return. Someone who sees a hungry child and feeds him. Not because it benefits her, but because it's the right thing to do." He took a step closer, and I could smell his cologne again, all wood and spice. "That kind of goodness is rare, Ella. Worth protecting. Worth keeping." "I'm not that good," I whispered. "You don't know me. You don't know what I've done, the mistakes I've made. I know you sleep in a storage unit because you lost your apartment. I know your ex-boyfriend stole from you and left you with nothing. I know you work 16-hour days and skip meals to save money. I know you've been invisible to this city for 6 months, and yet you still find ways to show kindness to others." His hand rose, fingers brushing my cheek with devastating gentleness. "I know everything about you, Ella Morrison. And I want to keep you anyway." The words stole my breath. "You investigated me." Of course I did. I protect what's mine, which means I need to know everything about it. Every detail, every vulnerability. His thumb traced my cheekbone, and I couldn't make myself pull away. "You have no family, no real friends, no safety net. You're one disaster away from complete ruin. That ends now. You can't just..." "I can. I am." His eyes searched mine. "Let me take care of you, Ella. Let me give you what you need. Security, stability, protection. In return, all I ask is that you accept it. That you let me keep you safe. And what happens when you get bored?" The question came out bitter, defensive. "When whatever this is loses its appeal? What happens to me then?" Something dark flickered across his expression. "I don't get bored with things I truly want. And I want you, Ella. Have from the moment I saw you feeding Tommy without hesitation. Without asking for anything in return. I want to keep you. Protect you. Make sure nothing in this city ever hurts you again." His words wrapped around me like silk. Beautiful and suffocating. Part of me wanted to give in, to accept the safety and security he offered. But another part, the part that had survived 6 months of hell on pride and determination alone, rebelled against the idea of belonging to anyone, even him. "I need time," I said, "to think. To process all of this. Take what time you need." He dropped his hand, but didn't step back. "But understand that my protection isn't contingent on your acceptance. You're mine now, whether you agree or not. The only question is whether you'll fight it or embrace it." He left then, sliding back into that Mercedes with its tinted windows. But before the door closed, he looked back at me one more time, and the heat in his gaze made my knees weak. The afternoon crowd was lighter, giving me time to think, time to panic, time to understand exactly how thoroughly my life had changed in just 2 days. Tommy showed up again around 4, later than usual. His eyes went immediately to the money in my cash box, then to the card Dante had left behind, another black card with another address. "He gave you an apartment," Tommy said, reading the address, "in the Riverside complex. That's where he houses people under his direct protection. I haven't agreed to take it. Doesn't matter. It's yours now. He's already made up his mind." Tommy's expression was grave. "You need to understand something, Ella. When Dante decides he wants something, he gets it, always. The only variable is how much fighting happens first. And honestly, he doesn't seem like he wants to fight you. He wants you to come willingly. What if I don't? Then he'll wait. Be patient. Make your current situation gradually more uncomfortable until accepting his offer becomes the logical choice." Tommy shrugged. "Or he'll just move you anyway and deal with your anger later. Hard to say." The certainty in his voice chilled me. "You sound like you've seen this before." "I have. With businesses he wants to acquire, with territory he wants to control. He stopped abruptly, his expression closing down. "With what?" "With people he wants to keep," Tommy finished quietly. "He's different with you than I've seen him be with anyone else. More careful, more gentle. But the end game is the same. You'll be his. The only question is whether you'll walk into that cage willingly, or if he'll have to carry you." I didn't go to the apartment that night. Instead, I returned to my storage unit, to the familiar discomfort of my narrow cot, and the boxes that held my former life. It was an act of defiance. Small and probably meaningless, but it was mine. The only choice I had left. Sleep came in fragments, broken by dreams where dark eyes watched me from shadows, where warm fingers traced my skin, where a voice like silk and razor wire whispered promises I didn't understand. I woke at 3 a.m. drenched in sweat, my heart racing, and couldn't fall back asleep. The next morning, I found flowers waiting at my cart. Not just any flowers, 24 blood-red roses in a crystal vase that probably cost more than my monthly income. The card attached was simple, written in bold, masculine handwriting. "You didn't go to the apartment. Stubborn. I can be patient." My guard. A different man today, younger, with a scar bisecting his left eyebrow, watched me read the card with something that might have been amusement. When I looked up, he gave me a slight nod, as if to say I told you so without speaking. The flowers sat on my cart all morning, drawing attention I didn't want. Customers asked questions. Who were they from? Was I seeing someone? Wasn't I lucky to have such a generous admirer? I smiled and deflected and tried to ignore the way my stomach fluttered every time I looked at them. Dante didn't appear that day, or the next, or the day after that, but his presence was everywhere, in the flowers that arrived each morning. Roses, then lilies, then orchids so exotic I had to look up their names. In the customers who suddenly became more polite, more generous with tips, clearly aware of who was protecting me. In the seamless way, problems disappeared before I even knew they existed. A health inspector who showed up, looked at my permits, and left with a satisfied nod. A drunk who started causing trouble and was quietly escorted away by men in dark suits before he could get within 10 feet of my cart. Tommy came every day, eating his sandwich and watching me with those 2 old eyes. "He's courting you," the boy said one afternoon. gesturing to the latest floral arrangement. White calla lilies that looked like they belonged at a wedding. That's what this is. The flowers, the protection, the distance. He's giving you time to get used to the idea of being his. I'm not going to be anyone's, I insisted. But the words sounded hollow even to my own ears. You already are, Tommy said gently. You just haven't accepted it yet. A week passed. Then 2. My profits soared. I was making more in a day than I used to make in a week. I opened a bank account, deposited the money with shaking hands, watched the numbers climb in ways I'd thought impossible. For the first time in 6 months, I could breathe without the constant pressure of poverty crushing my chest. But the storage unit felt smaller every night. The cot harder. The communal bathroom more degrading. The card with the apartment address burned in my pocket, a constant reminder of the choice I was refusing to make. On the 15th day, everything changed. I was closing up, the evening crowd thinning to nothing when a car pulled up that wasn't the familiar Mercedes. This one was sleek and silver, expensive but not ostentatious. The woman who emerged made my stomach drop. Isabella Russo, the same woman who'd approached me that first day at the new location. She walked toward my cart with predatory grace, her smile sharp enough to cut. My guard tensed across the street, his hand moving toward his jacket, but she waved him off with casual dismissal. Don't worry, she called to him. Just a friendly conversation between women. She stopped in front of me, her eyes cataloging the flowers, the money in my cash box, the way I'd clearly thrived under Dante's protection. Something dark flickered across her expression. You're doing well, she said. Better than well. Dante's been generous with you. What do you want? I asked, exhaustion making me blunt. To understand. She leaned against the cart, too close again, invading my space. What you have that I don't. What makes you special enough to capture Dante Moretti's attention so completely that he's neglecting everything else? I don't have anything. Don't lie. Her voice sharpened. I've known Dante for 5 years, done business with him, attended his events, made myself available in every way that matters. And in all that time, he's never looked at me the way he looks at you. Never sent flowers. Never assigned personal protection. Never rearranged his entire schedule to ensure someone's safety. She straightened, and I saw the hurt beneath her anger. So, tell me, what do you have that I don't? The honest answer was, I didn't know. But looking at her, beautiful, polished, clearly from his world in ways I never would be, I understood her confusion, her pain. I didn't ask for any of this, I said quietly. I just fed a hungry child. Everything else just happened. Nothing just happens with Dante. Everything is calculated, planned. He wanted this to happen. Wanted you. Her eyes narrowed. And he always gets what he wants, always. So you can keep pretending you have a choice, keep sleeping in that storage unit like some kind of martyr, but eventually you'll give in. They always do. Who's they? Everyone he decides to keep. She pushed away from the cart, her expression hardening. Enjoy it while it lasts. Men like Dante don't stay interested forever. And when he moves on to the next shiny thing, you'll be left with nothing but memories of what it felt like to matter to someone powerful. And she left, her words hanging in the air like poison. My guard crossed the street immediately, his expression concerned. You okay? He asked, first words he'd spoken to me in 2 weeks. Fine, I lied. She's bitter. Ignore her. Is it true? Does he always get what he wants? The guard's expression softened slightly. In business? Always. In everything else? He paused. He's never wanted anything the way he wants you. I've been with him for 8 years, and I've never seen him like this. Patient. Gentle. Willing to wait. He met my eyes. Don't mistake his patience for indifference. Every day you don't go to that apartment, he asks about you. Makes sure you're safe. Sends the flowers. He's obsessed, ma'am. And when Dante Moretti becomes obsessed with something, it's permanent. The word, obsessed, sent chills down my spine. Not fear, exactly. Something more complicated. Something that felt dangerously like anticipation. That night, I finally opened the envelope he'd given me with the apartment address. Inside was a key. Simple, silver, surprisingly ordinary, and a note in that same bold handwriting. This is yours whenever you're ready. No obligations, no expectations. Just a safe place to sleep. You deserve at least that much. D. I held the key in my palm, feeling its weight, feeling the weight of the choice it represented. The storage unit suddenly felt unbearable. The walls too close, the air too stale. The reminder of everything I'd lost too painful to endure for one more night. I packed my 2 boxes and duffel bag. Called a cab I could finally afford. Gave the driver the address with hands that wouldn't quite steady. The Riverside complex was everything I'd feared it would be. Gleaming glass and modern architecture. A doorman who greeted me by name. Elevators that moved with whisper-quiet efficiency. The apartment was on the 12th floor, and when I opened the door, I had to grip the frame to stay upright. It wasn't just an apartment. It was a home. Hardwood floors gleamed in the ambient lighting. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed a view of the city that took my breath away. The furniture was new, expensive, chosen with careful attention to comfort rather than showiness. The kitchen had granite countertops and appliances I'd only seen in magazines. The bedroom held a bed so large and inviting I wanted to cry. But it was the small details that broke me. The bookshelf stocked with novels in my favorite genres. How did he know? The bathroom with toiletries in my preferred brands. The closet filled with clothes in exactly my size. Nothing too flashy. Just quality basics that would actually fit my life. The refrigerator stocked with real food, fresh vegetables and good cheese, and the expensive coffee I'd always wanted to try but could never justify. He'd thought of everything, anticipated my every need, created a space that felt like it had been made specifically for me. I sat on the couch, soft leather that molded to my body, and let myself cry for the first time in months. Great, shuddering sobs that racked my whole body, crying for everything I'd lost, everything I'd gained. The terrifying realization that I was exactly where Isabella said I'd be, trapped in luxury, belonging to a man I barely knew but couldn't seem to resist. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You're home. Good. Sleep well, Ella. Tomorrow we talk. D. He was watching. Of course he was watching. Probably had cameras, alerts, some way of knowing the exact moment I walked through that door. The knowledge should have terrified me. Instead, it made me feel safe in ways I hadn't felt since before my world fell apart. I slept that night in sheets that felt like clouds, in a bed that cradled my exhausted body, in an apartment that smelled like expensive candles and new beginnings. And when I dreamed, it was of dark eyes and gentle hands, and a voice promising to keep me safe forever. Morning came too soon. I woke disoriented, forgetting where I was until the unfamiliar comfort registered. Sunlight streamed through windows I'd forgotten to cover, painting everything gold. For a moment, just one perfect moment, I let myself pretend this was my life. That I deserved this. That accepting it didn't mean surrendering everything I was. My phone buzzed again. Another text. Car will pick you up at 5:30 a.m. Don't bring your cart. You're done with that. Deep panic flared in my chest. The cart was mine. My independence. The one thing I'd built from nothing. He couldn't just take it away. I typed back quickly, I'm not done with the cart. It's my business. His response came immediately. You're right. It's your business. Which is why I'm not taking it away. I'm expanding it. Trust me. Get in the car. Trust him. The man who'd investigated every detail of my life. Who'd moved me like a chess piece. Who'd created a gilded cage so beautiful I'd walked into it willingly. But what choice did I have? Fighting him meant losing everything I'd gained. Accepting him meant losing everything I was. At 5:30, I got in the car. The driver said nothing, just navigated through early morning streets with practiced efficiency. We drove for 20 minutes, leaving the financial district behind, heading toward the waterfront. My confusion grew with every passing block. Then I saw it. A restaurant. Small but beautifully designed, with floor-to-ceiling windows facing the harbor. The sign above the door read, Ella's, in elegant script. Workers moved inside, putting finishing touches on what was clearly a nearly complete renovation. The car stopped. The driver opened my door. Mr. Moretti is waiting inside. I walked toward the entrance on legs that felt numb, pushed open the door to find Dante standing in the center of the empty dining room, his hands in his pockets, watching me with an expression I couldn't read. "What is this?" I asked. "Yours." He gestured to the space around us. "Your restaurant. Your business. Your future, if you want it. I don't understand. You showed me you could run a business feeding people from a cart. Imagine what you could do with a full kitchen, a staff, a real location." He moved toward me slowly, giving me time to process. "I'm not taking away your independence, Ella. I'm giving you the resources to expand it, to become everything you're capable of being." "Why?" The word came out broken. "Because you deserve it. Because I want to give it to you. Because seeing you succeed makes me feel something I haven't felt in years." He stopped in front of me, close enough that I could feel his warmth. "Because you're mine, and I take care of what's mine. I didn't agree to be yours. You moved into the apartment." His eyes held mine. "That was agreement enough. Taking shelter isn't the same as... isn't it?" He reached out, fingers tilting my chin up so I had to meet his gaze. "You accepted my protection, my home, my care. You let me into your life, Ella. That makes you mine, whether you want to admit it or not. And what do you get out of this?" I asked. "What's the price for all this generosity?" "You." Simple, direct, devastating. "I want you, Ella Morrison, in my life, by my side, under my protection permanently. I want to wake up knowing you're safe, want to see you build something beautiful, want to watch you thrive instead of just survive." His thumb brushed my lower lip. "I want you to be mine in every way that matters." The words hung between us, heavy with promise and threat in equal measure. I should have pulled away, should have said no, should have run from this man who'd systematically dismantled every wall I'd built around myself until I stood before him exposed and vulnerable. Instead, I asked the only question that mattered. "And if I say yes, if I agree to be yours, what does that actually mean?" Something shifted in his expression. Relief, maybe. Or satisfaction at a victory he'd known was inevitable from the start. His hand cupped my cheek, thumb tracing my cheekbone with devastating gentleness. "It means you stop fighting me. Stop pretending you don't feel this thing between us." His voice dropped lower, intimate. "It means you let me take care of you the way I've wanted to since the moment I saw you feeding Tommy without hesitation. It means you accept that you matter to me. More than you should. More than is probably wise, but undeniably. I don't know how to be what you need," I whispered. "You already are." He leaned closer, his forehead nearly touching mine. "You think I want someone from my world? Someone who understands the violence and the compromise and the darkness? I have enough of that. What I need, what I want, is you, exactly as you are, kind, stubborn, resilient, real." I'm scared. The admission escaped before I could stop it. "Good. Fear means you understand the weight of this. But Ella," his eyes searched mine, "I would never hurt you. Never let anyone else hurt you. You're the one thing in my entire life that's untouched by the ugliness of what I do. I want to keep you that way. You can't protect me from everything. Watch me. Not arrogance. Promise. Say yes, Ella. Stop running from the only person who wants to see you succeed." I thought about the past 2 weeks. The flowers arriving each morning like clockwork. The way problems disappeared before I knew they existed. The apartment that felt more like home than anywhere I'd lived in years. The restaurant standing before me now, built on nothing but his belief that I deserved better. He wasn't asking me to change. Wasn't demanding I become someone else. He was asking me to let him help me become more of who I already was. "Yes," I breathed. "Okay. Yes." The kiss came swift and sure, his mouth claiming mine with barely restrained hunger. I gasped against his lips, and he swallowed the sound, one hand tangling in my hair while the other pulled me flush against him. He tasted like coffee and mint, and something darker, more dangerous. Something that made my knees weak and my heart race, and every rational thought scatter like leaves in wind. When he finally pulled back, we were both breathing hard, His eyes had gone nearly black, pupils blown wide with desire barely held in check. Mine, he murmured against my lips. Say it. Yours. The word felt like surrender and victory simultaneously. He rested his forehead against mine, his breath warm on my face. I'm going to give you everything, Ella. Everything you've ever wanted and things you haven't even imagined yet. You'll never worry about money or safety or where your next meal comes from. You'll never sleep in storage units or skip meals or feel invisible again. I promise you that. What about Tommy? I asked, because even in this moment, I couldn't forget the boy who'd brought us together. Dante's expression softened. Tommy stays under my protection. He'll help in your restaurant if he wants. Give him purpose, structure, a path forward, but he's not the reason I'm doing this anymore. His thumb brushed my lower lip again. You are. The next weeks blurred together in a whirlwind of change. Dante was true to his word. The restaurant opened within a month, fully staffed with people he'd personally vetted. I spent my days learning to manage a real kitchen, working with chefs who treated my recipes with respect, building something that felt impossibly mine despite knowing his money had made it possible. Tommy came every day, just like before. But now he sat at a table in the dining room, doing homework while eating proper meals. Dante had enrolled him in school. A good one, private, with small classes and teachers who actually cared. The boy was thriving in ways that made my chest tight with emotion. He's different with you, Tommy said one afternoon, watching through the window as Dante's car pulled up outside. Softer. Like you make him remember he's human. I'd learned that Dante came by at least once a day, usually more. Sometimes he'd sit at the bar and work on his laptop, his presence a quiet comfort. Sometimes he'd pull me into the office for stolen kisses that left me breathless. Sometimes he'd just watch me work with an intensity that made me feel simultaneously exposed and cherished. He never pushed for more than I was ready to give. Never demanded I cross lines before I was prepared. But the tension built between us like a physical thing, electric and inevitable. The night he finally took me to his home, I knew everything was about to change again. His penthouse was masculine and elegant, all dark wood and leather and floor-to-ceiling windows showing the city spread out like scattered diamonds. He poured wine, expensive, older than me probably, and we stood at the window watching the lights below. I need you to understand something, he said quietly. My world is dangerous. I've kept you separate from most of it, but eventually, people will try to use you to get to me. They'll see you as my weakness. Am I? I asked. Your weakness? He turned to face me, and the raw honesty in his expression stole my breath. Yes, completely. You're the only thing in this entire city that could bring me to my knees. That terrifies you. It should terrify you more. He set down his wine, moved closer. Because it means I'll do anything to keep you safe. Anything, Ella. There are no lines I won't cross, no prices I won't pay. You need to understand that before this goes any further. And if I can't accept that part of you, then I'll let you go. The words came out strained, painful. It would destroy me, but I'd do it. Because keeping you against your will would destroy us both. I looked at this man who'd given me everything. Safety, security, purpose, passion. And realized the truth I'd been avoiding. I didn't want to leave. Didn't want to imagine my life without him in it. Somewhere between the flowers and the restaurant, and the gentle way he touched me like I might break, I'd fallen completely and irrevocably in love with him. I'm not going anywhere, I said. The relief that crossed his face was profound. He crossed the distance between us in 2 strides, pulling me into a kiss that felt like coming home. This time, when he lifted me into his arms and carried me toward his bedroom, I didn't protest. Didn't hesitate. I surrendered completely. That night, tangled in sheets that smelled like him, his body warm against mine, and his arms holding me like I was something precious, I finally understood what Tommy had meant all those weeks ago. Dante had looked at me like something he wanted to keep, and now I was kept, caged in luxury and protection, and a love so fierce it should have frightened me, but I'd learned that cages came in many forms. Some were prisons, and some like strong arms holding you through the night, and a voice whispering promises against your skin, were sanctuaries. 6 months later, the restaurant was thriving. Tommy had moved into the apartment next to mine in Dante's building, under the official guardianship of a cousin who existed primarily on paper. The boy was getting straight A's, playing soccer, laughing in ways that made him look his actual age. Isabella Russo had tried once more to cause problems, spreading rumors, suggesting I was nothing but a paid mistress. Dante had handled it with characteristic efficiency. She'd issued a public apology within 24 hours and hadn't been seen in our neighborhood since. I'd learned to navigate his world, the business dinners where I smiled and made polite conversation while pretending not to notice the weapons hidden under suit jackets. The charity galas where I wore dresses that cost more than my old cart and stood beside him while he commanded every room he entered. The quiet moments when he'd come home exhausted and dangerous, and I'd remind him there was still softness in his life. He'd proposed on the anniversary of the day we met, a ring that was elegant rather than ostentatious, diamonds set in platinum that caught the light like captured stars. I'd said yes before he'd finished asking. Now, standing in the restaurant as the evening service wound down, I watched Tommy bus tables with the efficiency of long practice, watched my staff move through their routines, watched the life I'd built from nothing but Dante's belief in me thrive beyond anything I'd imagined possible. The door opened, and I knew without looking who it was. My body recognized his presence before my mind registered the sound. Dante crossed the room with that predatory grace that still made my breath catch, his eyes finding mine immediately. "Busy night?" he asked, pulling me into his arms like he always did, like he needed the contact as much as I did. "Good night," I corrected, leaning into his warmth. "We're fully booked for the next 2 weeks." "That's my girl." He pressed a kiss to my temple. "Ready to go home?" Home. Not the apartment, though I still technically kept it. Home was wherever he was. The penthouse where I now spent most nights, where my clothes hung in his closet and my books filled his shelves, and my presence had transformed his space into something softer, warmer. Almost. "Let me finish closing up." He helped, because he always did. Moved through the space with familiar ease, knowing exactly where everything went because he'd been here since the beginning. Watching us work together, Tommy smiled. "You two are disgustingly happy," the boy said. But there was warmth in his voice. "It's nice. Makes me think maybe good things can happen even when life's been terrible." "They can," I assured him. "You just have to be brave enough to accept them when they're offered." Later, in Dante's car with the city lights blurring past, his hand found mine in the darkness. His fingers laced through mine, thumb stroking my ring in a gesture that had become habit. "Do you regret it?" he asked quietly. Saying yes to me? I thought about the woman I'd been, invisible, exhausted, barely surviving. Thought about the woman I was now, successful, protected, loved beyond measure. Thought about the choice I'd made to surrender to a man who'd seen value in me when I couldn't see it in myself. "Never," I said, "not for a single moment." "Good." He lifted my hand to his lips, pressed a kiss to my knuckles. "Because you're stuck with me now, Ella Morrison. For better or worse. We're not married yet. A technicality." His eyes met mine in the dim light. "You became mine the moment you fed a hungry boy without asking what was in it for you. Everything since has just been making it official." He was right, I realized. From that first sandwich handed to a child who needed kindness, my fate had been sealed. I'd walked into Dante Moretti's life without knowing it, and he'd refused to let me walk back out. Some might call it a trap, a cage, a loss of freedom. But wrapped in his arms that night, safe and cherished and loved with an intensity that still took my breath away, I knew the truth. I hadn't lost my freedom. I'd traded survival for living. Loneliness for belonging. Invisibility for being seen so completely that hiding was impossible. Dante Moretti had claimed me, body and soul, and I'd claimed him right back. The city spread out below us as we drove through the night, full of people struggling and surviving and hoping for better. I'd been one of them once. Now I was something different, someone who'd learned that sometimes the most dangerous choices led to the most beautiful destinations. Tommy was safe. The restaurant was mine, and the man beside me, This beautiful, dangerous creature who'd systematically dismantled my defenses and rebuilt my life into something extraordinary, was mine to keep. Some fairy tales ended with true love's kiss. Mine ended with a kiss from a man whose hands were stained with darkness, but who'd used them to build me a kingdom of light. Who'd looked at a poor food vendor and seen someone worth keeping. Who'd turned my simple act of kindness into a love story neither of us had seen coming. And in the end, that was more than enough. It was everything.